The stagecoach was a day late, and that should have been Eliza Hart's first warning that nothing in Dry Creek would go according to plan. She stepped down from the dust-caked conveyance on a Tuesday afternoon in late September. Her traveling dress, once a respectable navy blue, was now the color of Colorado dirt that seemed to coat everything in sight. The wooden sign at the stage depot hung crooked, its painted letters so sun-bleached she could barely make out the town's name. Wind whipped across the empty street, carrying the scent of sage and something else, cattle perhaps, or horses. Boston had never smelled like this. "Ma'am." The driver held out her carpet bag, his weathered face creased with what might have been concern or simple impatience. "There's your stop." "Yes." The word came out steadier than she felt. "Thank you." He touched his hat brim and climbed back up, eager to be gone. As the stage rolled away, leaving her standing alone beside her trunk, Eliza wondered if she should have stayed aboard, continued on to California or Oregon. Anywhere but here. The town stretched before her in a single, muddy thoroughfare. Murphy's General Store, a barber shop with cracked windows, the Copper Horn Saloon already rowdy despite the early hour, and various other establishments whose purposes she could only guess at. Not a soul walked the wooden sidewalks. Even the dogs seemed to have better sense than to venture out in the afternoon heat. She'd memorized Ephraim Greeley's letters during the long journey west. Dry Creek is a fine town, he'd written in his careful script, growing every day. You'll find it quite agreeable. Standing here now, Eliza suspected Mr. Greeley had been generous with his descriptions. Or perhaps mail-order brides couldn't afford to be particular about definitions of agreeable. The sheriff's office sat across from the depot, and she headed there first, dragging her trunk behind her. The door stood open, revealing a portly man with his boots propped on a scarred desk, Sheriff Pike. He lowered his newspaper, 2 weeks old, she noticed, and gave her a long look that made her skin crawl. "That's me. You lost, miss." Quote, "I'm looking for Mr. Ephraim Greeley. He was supposed to meet me yesterday." Something flickered across Pike's broad face. He swung his feet down and stood, hitching up his gun belt. "You must be the bride from back east, Miss Eliza Hart." She kept her chin up, though the way he said bride made it sound like something shameful. "Is Mr. Greeley delayed?" Pike scratched his neck, glancing toward the saloon. "Well, now, that's the thing. See, there's been some trouble. Mr. Greeley, he got himself shot Sunday night, dead before Doc Hutchkins could even patch him up." The words hit her like physical blows. She gripped the doorframe, her knees suddenly weak. Shot? Bar fight at the Copper Horn. Something about water rights. Pike shrugged as if death was no more consequential than spilled beer. "These things happen. I've already closed the case. Clear-cut self-defense." "But Eliza's mind reeled. 3,000 miles, every penny she owned spent on passage. Where is he? His body, I mean. Already buried yesterday morning. Pike's gaze traveled over her, lingering in ways that made her want to wash. "Real shame. A pretty thing like you coming all this way for nothing. Of course, there's other men in town might be interested in a wife. For the right price, I could make some introductions." "That won't be necessary." The voice came from behind her, deep and steady. Eliza turned to find a man filling the doorway, tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that needed cutting and eyes the color of storm clouds. Dust covered his clothes, and he smelled of leather and horse sweat, but something in his bearing made Pike step back. "Boone Callahan." Pike's tone had gone sour. "This ain't your concern." "Maybe not." The man, Callahan, looked at Eliza with surprising gentleness. "Ma'am, you have somewhere to stay." Quote. She shook her head, not trusting her voice. "My sister May runs a boarding house. Clean beds, decent food. I'll take you there if you like." "Now hold on," Pike blustered. "The lady and I were having a conversation about her prospects." "The lady looks tired." Callahan's voice remained calm, but Eliza noticed how his hand rested near his hip, close to the worn handle of a Colt. "And May doesn't take kindly to me being late for supper." The two men stared at each other for a long moment. Finally, Pike turned away, muttering something about papers to file. Callahan picked up Eliza's trunk as if it weighed nothing. "This way, Miss Hart." Eliza Hart. "Miss Hart, I'm sorry about Greeley. He wasn't a bad sort, just—" He paused, choosing his words. Just got mixed up in things he shouldn't have. They walked in silence, past the saloon where faces pressed against grimy windows to stare. Eliza kept her eyes forward, though she could hear the whispers starting already. Mail-order bride. Poor thing. Wonder how long before she's working the rooms upstairs. Don't mind them, Callahan said quietly. Half of them came here running from something worse, and the other half, a slight smile tugged at his mouth. Still running. May Callahan's boarding house sat at the town's eastern edge, a two-story frame building that had seen better days but appeared clean and solid. A vegetable garden struggled against the drought in the side yard, and white curtains fluttered in the windows. May herself proved to be a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s, her graying hair pulled back in a severe bun. She took one look at Eliza and ushered her inside without questions. "You'll want to wash up," May said briskly. "Supper's at 6. We'll talk terms after you've eaten." The room was small but clean, with a narrow bed, a washstand, and a single window overlooking the garden. Eliza sat on the bed and finally allowed herself to feel the full weight of her situation. No husband, no money for passage home, and no home to return to anyway. She'd burned that bridge when she'd answered Greeley's advertisement. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Miss Hart," Callahan's voice. "Brought your trunk up." She opened the door to find him standing in the hallway, hat in hand. Up close, she noticed the lines around his eyes, the way he held himself like a man accustomed to trouble. "Thank you for everything." He shifted uncomfortably. "Greeley worked for me sometimes, moving cattle, odd jobs. I feel partly responsible for, well," he cleared his throat. "Thing is, I could use someone who can read and figure, keep books, manage accounts. The pay is fair. And there's a room at the ranch, separate quarters, all proper. You could try it for a week, see if it suits. If not, I'll stake you the fare back east." Eliza studied his face, searching for the catch. In her experience, men didn't offer something for nothing. "Why?" "Because I knew Greeley, and this isn't right. You coming all this way for nothing." He met her gaze steadily. "And because I need help. My last bookkeeper lit out for the Goldfields 3 months ago, and the accounts are a mess. You'd be doing me a favor." "I'll think about it." He nodded, settling his hat back on his head. "Fair enough. May'll tell you I'm good for my word if that helps." After he left, Eliza washed her face and changed her dress, then ventured downstairs. The dining room held a long table where several boarders were already gathering. May introduced her simply as Miss Hart from Boston, which started a fresh round of stares and whispers. "Pay them no mind," May said, serving up plates of beef stew. "Half the women in this territory came here for marriages that didn't work out as planned." "Did yours?" Eliza asked before she could stop herself. May's laugh was short and bitter. "My husband's buried up on Boot Hill. Caught a bullet in a card game 10 years back." She settled into her chair with a grunt. "But I've got this place and I've got my independence. That's more than most." The stew was simple but good, and Eliza found herself hungrier than she'd realized. As she ate, she listened to the talk around the table. Drought conditions, cattle prices, the railroad possibly coming through. Normal concerns of normal people trying to build something in this hard country. "You're Mr. Greeley's lady, ain't you?" asked a thin man with nervous hands. He was into something with that water business. Sons Black's been buying up all the water rights along Willow Run. Greeley was helping him file claims, or so I heard. "That's enough, Parsons," May said sharply. "Man's dead. Let it lie." But Eliza filed the information away. Water rights. In a place this dry, water would be worth killing for. The Circle C Ranch spread across the prairie like something that had grown from the earth itself. Weathered buildings the same dusty brown as the surrounding hills. Eliza's first glimpse came as they crested a rise, the morning sun painting everything in shades of gold and amber. "There it is," Boone said simply, but she heard the pride in his voice. The main house sat solid and unpretentious with a wide porch wrapped around 2 sides. Beyond it, she could see the barn, several outbuildings, and what must be the bunkhouse. Smoke rose from multiple chimneys, and she caught the sound of voices, the ring of a hammer on metal. "How many people work here?" she asked. 8 regular hands, plus Mateo and his boy Luis. They've got their own place just past the barn. He glanced at her. "Mateo's been with me since I started the ranch. His wife passed 2 winters ago." As they rode into the yard, men stopped their work to stare. Eliza kept her back straight, meeting their curious gazes with calm assurance. She'd learned on the journey west that showing weakness invited trouble. "Boys," Boone called out. "This is Miss Hart. She'll be handling the books and helping with correspondence. Anyone has a problem with that can draw their pay and move on." No one moved. After a moment, an older Mexican man approached, removing his hat. "Señorita, welcome to Circle C," he said warmly. "I am Mateo Rodriguez." "Mr. Rodriguez," Eliza nodded. "I'm pleased to meet you." A boy of perhaps 12 peeked out from behind Mateo. Luis, she guessed. He had his father's dark eyes, but a quicker smile. "Come on," Boone said. "I'll show you the house." The interior was simple but clean, built for work rather than comfort. The kitchen dominated one side, with a heavy iron stove and a scarred table. The smell of coffee and bacon lingered. "Your room's back here." Boone led her down a short hallway. "Used to be my mother's sewing room." The small space held a bed, dresser, and writing desk beneath a window facing the mountains. Someone had placed a jar of wildflowers on the sill. Prairie roses and paintbrush. "This is perfect," Eliza said softly. "Good. Kitchen's yours to use as needed. Most of the hands eat in the bunkhouse, but Mateo and Luis take meals here sometimes." He hesitated. "I'm not much for cooking myself." "I noticed the burn spots on your stove," she said dryly. "Don't worry, Mr. Callahan. I can manage a kitchen." "It's Boone," he corrected. "The office is through here." The office was chaos. Papers covered every surface. Ledgers left open under rocks to keep them from blowing away. "Lord have mercy," Eliza muttered. Boone winced. "Like I said, the last bookkeeper left sudden." She picked up a faded receipt. "This is from 2 years ago. Some might be older." Eliza set down her bag with determination. "I'll need fresh ledgers, ink, and about a gallon of coffee." "Yes, ma'am," he almost smiled. "Lunch is at noon. Ring the bell outside the kitchen door, and whoever's close will come running." After he left, Eliza took stock of her new kingdom. It was a mess, but an organized mess waiting to happen. She rolled up her sleeves and began sorting. Slowly, patterns emerged. The Circle C was surviving, but barely. Too many fines. Too many fees with no explanation. "These fines," she said later, showing Mateo when he stopped by. "They seem convenient." "See the sheriff," Mateo said darkly. "Always some reason to take Senor Boone's money. The cattle drink from the wrong side of the creek. The fence sits on the wrong hill. Better to pay than fight, but it grows worse each season." Eliza made a note. "Has it gotten worse since Silas Black arrived?" Mateo's smile held no humor. "You are quick, señorita. Yes, much worse." At noon, she rang the bell. Within minutes, men filled the kitchen. She'd thrown together beans, cornbread, and preserved peaches. The men ate fast, but not rudely. "Ma'am," one said, "this cornbread's a sight better than what Boone usually manages." Quote, "That ain't saying much," another joked. "Boone's cornbread could shoe a horse." Boone appeared in the doorway. "I heard that." But there was laughter in his voice. The easy camaraderie surprised Eliza. These men weren't servants. They were family. That evening, Boone came in dusty from the range. "You missed supper," he said. She looked up, startled. "Is it that late?" He set a covered dish in front of her. "Saved you a plate." He nodded toward the ledgers. "Find anything?" Quote, "Several things. None good." She pointed to a column of payments. "What are these? Assessments?" Quote, "Pike's special taxes," Boone said grimly. "Pay them or find your water rights revoked in court." "But that's extortion." "Yes." His tone was flat. "Judge Harlow owns shares in Black's company. The law tends to favor investors." In Boston, we'd call this a criminal conspiracy. Out here, we call it Tuesday, he said, though his eyes were cold. Eat your supper before it gets cold. As she ate, he studied the organized ledgers. You've done more in one day than I managed in 3 months. Quote, You were running a ranch, she said. Still, she tapped a page, look here. Find Spike every time you bring cattle to market. Someone's watching your business very closely. Black? Boone said bitterly. Knows when we're flush and when we're hurting. Eliza pulled out the telegram receipt from Greeley's coat. What if Greeley wasn't just filing water claims? What if he was passing information about everyone's finances? Boone studied it. Wouldn't surprise me. He worked for half the Valley ranches at one time or another. He'd know who was vulnerable. He looked up sharply. You need to be careful. If Black thinks you're a threat. He already had Greeley killed, didn't he? Can't prove it. Pike says self-defense. The other man vanished right after. He stood. Lock this door when I leave. Keep your curtains drawn at night. You're trying to frighten me. I'm trying to keep you safe, he said, voice low and rough. I've seen what Black does to people who get in his way. Quote, After he left, Eliza sat in the lamplight, surrounded by numbers that told a story of corruption and greed. She was good at reading stories in numbers, and she was even better at rewriting them. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Señorita? It was Luis, holding a battered primer. Is too late for lesson? Never too late to learn, she said, smiling. They spent an hour at the desk, trading lessons, English for Spanish, hope for purpose. Later, when he left, Eliza looked out her window. She could see Boone's silhouette on the porch, keeping watch. He was protecting her, not because she was helpless, but because she might be dangerous to the right people. Tomorrow, she decided, she'd dig deeper into the records. She'd come west to escape being a shadow in Boston, and found herself standing in the light. Outside, a coyote howled across the dark prairie. The wind whispered secrets through the grass. And Eliza Hart, formerly of Boston, whispered back, Wait, before we move on, what do you think about the story so far? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm really curious to know. The drought had teeth that year. By the second week of October, Willow Run had shrunk to half its usual width, and the grass crackled like paper underfoot. Eliza watched from the kitchen window as cattle gathered near the remaining water holes, their shadows long in the morning light. They bunch up more each day, Mateo said, joining her. Too many animals, too little water. What happens when it runs dry, she asked. Then we pray for rain or drive them 15 miles to Beaver Creek, he said grimly. But that's through Black's land now. He bought the Hendricks place last month. Eliza had seen the sale recorded in town, another family forced out by debt and deceit. The pattern had become clear as ink on paper. Riders coming, Luis called from the porch. Boone emerged from the barn, hand near his hip, but his shoulders eased when he saw the lead rider, Samuel Finch, the newspaperman. He rode up with 2 ranchers, faces dusted from the trail. Black's crew put up a fence along the south fork of Willow Run. Finch said grimly, claims the water's entirely on his property now. Quote, The hell it is, Boone muttered. My family's been using that fork for 20 years. He's got papers saying otherwise. New survey markers went up last week. Finch pulled out a notebook. I'm writing about it, but thought you deserved a warning first. Appreciate it, Boone said, jaw tight. He turned to the others. How's your water holding up? Down to mud, one man said. We're thinking of selling. Can't fight what we can't prove. Eliza stepped forward. Before you sell, would you let me see your property papers? There might be mistakes, details overlooked. The men stared. Finch smiled faintly. You might want to listen to her. She's got a head for figures that'd scare a banker. A woman bookkeeper, one muttered, but he handed her the folded deeds. Eliza examined them quickly, her brow furrowed. The ink on these signatures. See here? Different hand. The dates don't match the official stamp. These were forged. Finch's eyes widened. That's proof. Not yet, she said, but it's a start. That night, Eliza stayed up late, comparing maps, deeds, and ledgers. When Boone came in from his rounds, he found her surrounded by papers. You should sleep. Can't, she said. Look at this. Tax rolls spike right after each sale. Someone's falsifying the reassessments. Black, Boone said darkly. Or Pike, she added. Or both. He leaned over her shoulder, their faces close in the lamplight. You're good at this. I've had practice, she said softly, reading what men try to hide. A knock at the door shattered the quiet. Mateo burst in, face pale. Senor Boone, the dam! Someone opened the gates. Water's flooding toward Black's land. Boone grabbed his hat and rifle. Summers, Jake, with me. Eliza, stay here. The hell I will, she said, already reaching for her coat. They rode through the night, lanterns swinging as they reached the creek. Water roared through the broken gate, half the ranch's supply already gone. Sabotage, Mateo spat. Can't prove it, Boone said tightly, but his eyes burned. They fought through mud and cold water, digging a new trench to redirect the flow. Eliza's hands blistered, but she didn't stop. By dawn, they'd saved what little they could. It'll last 2 weeks, Mateo said quietly. It'll have to do, Boone replied. As the first light hit the horizon, Eliza spotted something glinting in the mud. A nail, square-headed, factory-made. She held it up. Not local. I've seen these before. Boone examined it. Pike's horse throws shoes like this. His voice hardened. That bastard. Back at the ranch, Eliza's body ached, but her spirit burned. She wasn't afraid anymore. She was angry. That afternoon, as she worked through the ledgers, Finch arrived again. You were right, he said breathlessly. I checked the surveyor Black hired. No record of him existing before this year. The man's a ghost. Then, the surveys are fake, Eliza said. Exactly. But we'll need Pike's files to prove it. Then we get them, Boone said, one way or another. That evening, they gathered every rancher willing to stand up to Black. Men and women filled the kitchen, rough hands clutching coffee cups, faces drawn but determined. Eliza stood. Black uses paper and law to steal your land. Then we'll use paper and law to take it back. Bring me every deed, every tax notice, every scrap of paper you have. The truth's buried in there somewhere, and I intend to dig it out. A murmur spread through the crowd, half fear, half hope. She's right, Boone said. If we stand together, we've got a chance. Over the next week, Eliza worked tirelessly. The kitchen became an office, the table stacked high with maps and documents. Even Luis helped, sorting pages, learning faster than ever. But Black struck back harder. Fires, poisoned wells, threats whispered in the dark. Then came the ordinance. Unmarried women barred from working outside town. Pike arrived with his deputies, smug as a cat. I'm afraid I'll have to take you in, Miss Hart. Boone stepped forward, over my dead body. It's all right, Eliza said quietly. I'll go. I have nothing to hide. The jail was hot, stinking of fear. Pike smirked as he locked her in. Judge'll see you in the morning. Might even let you go, if you promise to behave. Quote, he didn't expect May Callahan to show up with half the town an hour later, or Finch waving legal papers. This ordinance violates territorial law, Finch said sharply. You'll be the one in irons if you don't release her. Through the bars, Eliza heard the rumble of voices outside. Ranchers, townsfolk, even church ladies. They were done being afraid. Pike's jaw worked. This isn't over. No, Eliza said, stepping into the sunlight, it's just beginning. From that day, Dry Creek changed. Ranchers united, sharing water and supplies. The newspaper printed the truth. The people stood taller. When the territorial assessor arrived a week later, Eliza and Finch laid out their evidence. Fake deeds, forged signatures, stolen water rights. The assessor, shocked and furious, declared the documents invalid and called for a full investigation. Pike fled town. Black barricaded himself in his mansion with hired guns. But justice was already coming. Federal marshals rode in from Denver, and Boone rode with them. At Limestone Canyon, they found the secret dam Black had built to hoard the valley's water. In the gunfire that followed, the dam broke, washing away the last of his empire. By the time the sun rose, Black was in chains. The water flowed freely again, and Dry Creek breathed for the first time in years. That evening, Boone found Eliza standing by Willow Run, watching the sunset bleed across the sky. "It's over," he said quietly. "No," she replied, turning to him. "It's beginning." He smiled, stepping close enough that their shadows merged. "You asked me once if this was wrong. And you said, 'Only if you stop.'" His hand brushed her cheek. "Don't stop, Eliza. Not now. Not ever." She rose onto her toes and kissed him. It wasn't desperate or stolen. It was the kind of kiss that builds things, like fences and futures and families. Months later, they married under the cottonwoods by the creek, with the townsfolk cheering and the wind carrying the scent of rain. Years later, children's laughter echoed across the valley. The water ran clear, and the Callahan Ranch thrived. Dry Creek had become a place of hope again, proof that courage, honesty, and love could take root even in the hardest ground. And sometimes, late at night, when thunder rolled across the plains, Boone would still whisper the words that started it all. "Only if you stop." But Eliza never did.